Do you ever listen to your drops and wonder why they sound so bad? Why it never sounds like your favourite artist's tracks? Don't worry, I've been there too. For many years I've been in that situation. And that's why in today's video we're going to dive into a drum and bass drop and figure out how to make it sound good. First though, let's listen to the final product. So there's two main elements in your drops. There's the drums and then there's the basses. And you need to get these two spot on in order for your drop to sound good, and they need to complement each other as well. So different drums might work with different basses and different basses might work with different drums. This is super important. Then of course there's other elements like vocals and instruments and effects that can be added in, but these are like ear candy, so there's no point in even adding them in until you've got your drums and your basses perfect. So what we're going to do first is recreate the drums from this drop. So we're basically going to create an 8-bar drop, and you can follow along and recreate it with me and get a better understanding of how to make your drops. Now the samples I'm using are from two sample packs, the Rollers DnB sample pack and the Dance Floor DnB sample pack, both available on my website. And I've got a special promotion code in the description when you buy both these together and you get a little discount on them. So make sure to check that out. Before we start, if you haven't got the project template that we're going to be using in this video, there's a free link down below, first link. It also contains an FL Studio template, so if you're on FL Studio, you can follow along as well. So let's just start with the very first bar, Control L loop it. So we're starting with like a very transient heavy kick drum, so it's nice and punchy. So this is Rollers kick 4. We can put this on the first beat and then halfway across the third beat like this, to get that half step pattern. Now, if we like how the kick drum sounds, we don't need to add any post-processing. It's just pointless. So you can see here, I've got my kick drum going in the kick group. So let's close this now. And then it's going through the drum bus with a drum bus on it and a limiter on it. And it's going all the way to minus 1.6 dB. So I'm pretty happy with that level. We're mixing loud. Now let's add in our snare. So this snare we're using is Dance Floor Snare 9. And we're just going to put it here and here on the second and fourth beat. So we get this, and then we just check the volume on it. So you can see it's coming in a little bit louder than the kick, so we're just going to turn it down so it's quieter than the kick. A little bit more. There you go, just around a dB quieter than the kick, that's fine. So now we've got the kick and the snare. They both sound great, no need to layer them. We need to start adding some groove to the track, and we can do this with percussion, claps, and hi-hats and tops. So we've got Dance Floor Perk 1, and we're just going to pop it here just before the first snare to get this. So a nice little bit of groove there. Then we've got this other clap to put in for more groove, but we need to extend this by another bar first. So let's just extend this by a bar and duplicate everything, so we can just select everything and press Control D. And now we've got this additional clap / percussion element to put in, and we're going to put it here just before the last kick drum. So this is actually jump up clap 4, but you can use any clap. And then we're just going to shorten it down like this. And now let's listen. Maybe turn it down slightly. So let's have a look at the mix down. You see it's quite loud, so we'll just turn this down. Very nice. So that's all the claps and perks done in this bit. Now we're in the hat group territory, so let's add some hi-hats. The first thing I'm going to do is add a hi-hat every other beat. This is quite a big hi-hat. It's the Rollers Hat 24, and it goes like this. So it adds a little bit of transient to the kick drum and sounds good as well. So we can just maybe turn it down slightly. And we're just going to make sure that there's no sort of interruption with the kick drum. So it did sound like maybe it was distorting a little bit on the kick drum. So let's just get rid of any of the low end. Maybe that's due to the limiter on here. Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. So now we want to add another hi-hat in this gap here. So you can see it's halfway across from the hi-hat we just added in, and we're going to put it here. So this is Rollers hi-hat 1, and this will just create even more groove. And then we can just duplicate this. So if we put it on half mode, and then we can just select it and press Control D, Control D, Control D. So now the drums are sounding pretty cool, but what I like to do to add even more groove is find some nice hat loops and then add them in, just to fill in any gaps. You can do it manually if you want, but I just find this a bit easier. So let's add in this loop. It's the Rollers Perk Loop 5. Now, one thing I had noticed is this clap repeats itself a bit too much. I'm just going to remove that second clap. And now we need to extend this. So the full 8 bars goes all the way to here. You can press Ctrl L. But currently we only have a quarter of that. So we can just literally close down this drum bus here and then grab it all and then do Ctrl D, Ctrl D, Ctrl D. And now we have the full drum loop. Now, one thing I like to note is that every section 7 and 8 of the 8-bar loops in the drop can have transitions in them. So this is where the drums might slightly change, maybe to some breaks or to like a build up into the next section of the drop, or just have less elements in to support maybe a vocal hook or an instrument hook, or maybe even a bass hook, like in this example. So what we're going to do then is just delete this section. And if we go to this perk group section, we've got space for some perks and extras. So in the extra section, I'm going to paste in this really cool break loop I found on Splice, TSP_end_174, turnaround break. I may just turn this down a little bit. And then we can support this with some elements, so maybe a kick drum at the start. We can maybe add the hi-hats in. Maybe add the kick drum here as well. And there we go. So now we're looking at the basses. On the screen here, you'll see that 8 bars is divided into 4 sections. We've got section A, 2 bars long, section B, 2 bars long, section A again, 2 bars long, section C, 2 bars long. So all we need to do is do section A of the drop with the bass, and then we've done half the drop. Now, one thing I will say is it's a lot easier to make the drop if you already have an intro and a build up. Now, for the purpose of this video, we haven't got one, but normally if I create a drop and then an intro afterwards, I might have to end up changing the drop because it won't match the intro and build up. That's just how production works. It's one of the most annoying things about production, but you can't change it. So if you're able to get an idea down with your intro and your build up, then go ahead and do that. If not, just experiment with loads of different types of basses on the drop. Now, the best way to do this is to use a plugin like Serum, and then you can also use samples on Splice as well to help you. You can chop up loops or you can find little one-shots, but the best way to get unique sounds is to use Serum because you can change the basses on it and you can get presets and then change these presets. And essentially what I'll do is I'll just brainstorm ideas by going through as many presets as possible and just playing them out and seeing what they sound like. So you'll see all my presets, so all the ones I've created over the last few years are in here. You can see, so I'll go through a lot of these for ideas, and then if I'm making drum and bass, I've got a whole drum and bass section here with all the basses I've ever downloaded organized into sections. I might go through like 100 different basses to brainstorm ideas and then go with one and alter it and change things about, add some post-processing on in order to get the final product. And it won't always work. Sometimes it'll be a failure, and then sometimes I'll hit a jackpot and create something really unique sounding and cool. So let's look at what I've done for this track. So I've got an 808 bass, which I found from my dance floor pack, the Mist one, and it's just a sine wave on these settings. So on envelope 1, and then we've got the LFO on the coarse pitch on 20-ish. You press Shift and Alt to change the direction of this. And then we've just got a bit of post-processing on, so a sine shaper and some compression, a little bit of EQ. And then the post-processing, we've got an OTT, a satin on the demo MB setting. And this creates this sound. And this is a really cool sound for the first bass hit. So if we just focus on section A, so let's zoom in on section A, we can just grab this section, press Ctrl Shift M to create a channel, and then let's just add a bass note. So let's try E. Now you can add sidechain on your bass bus, or you can add it individually, it just depends on your preference, but it's a bit quicker to do it on the bass bus because then it applies to everything. So let's add it in, and we can go audio and then come down here and apply it to the kick group. Now let's play again. Now the bass isn't interfering with the kick drum. So we've got the first beat sorted. Now we need to add more. So I've gone for a wobble bass style here, and you can see this is the Dance Floor Ultra bass. And it's just a wobble with 2 sine waves in these settings and some post-processing on it. And then we've got a saturator on it, a trash 2 on it on these settings, a Pro MB, And then we've EQ'd out the low end because we're going to add a sub bass in. Again, let's do the same thing. So Control-Shift-M, and now let's find the right spot to try and make this wobble work. So here, from here onwards, we can add it in. So we can make this a bit shorter, just, now let's zoom out. So we want to put it here. You can see it's just after there. We've done this section. Now something just needs to fill in here, and I found this Y bass. Now I think I found this in the sample pack and then changed a load of the settings up just to get like a short stabby sound. It's a pretty complicated sound, probably overly complicated, but you can see all the settings here. So again, we can do the same settings, Control-Shift-M. We can try adding it here. Yeah, and then maybe just turn that a little bit, it's a little bit loud. It's got some of the same settings on as the last bass. I think I might have just duplicated some of them across. And then finally, we need a sub bass. So what we could do is just copy all these sounds onto the sub bass directly. So we could just do this. I could just do this, but probably don't need it for the 808 bass because that's already a low bass and we haven't cut out any lows, so let's not do that. And the sub bass is literally just a sine wave and then a sine wave created by drawing it on bin 3 here, and it should sound like this. So now the bass on the drop is covering the whole section A, so I'm pretty happy with that. We can then copy this all into section A here, and now we just need to create some variation with section B and section C. So we can copy it all across again, and then listen and make changes accordingly. So this bit gets a bit repetitive, so we can put something else here instead. And then section C is where the drums are coming in, so let's put a respace here instead. So this respace is a very aggressive one, and it's just very simple settings, as you can see. And then again, we could do the same, so Control-Shift-M. So maybe we can go really low pitched. Just creating this. Maybe turn this down, it's very loud. And now we just need to do this last variation here. So I'm thinking maybe some sort of other 808. So normally what I do is just duplicate a channel, remove all this, remove all this. We can add a melody first and then change the bass afterwards. And of course it doesn't have to be a bass that could go in there. It could be like a vocal bit could go in here, an effects one shot, anything that fills the space. And in the end I've gone for this nice little 808. Of course you can always change it up later on as well. Let's listen to what this sounds like with the A, B, A, C in place. Some nice drums and some nice basses and a nice sub. Of course, then we can fill it up with any vocals from the intro where you can put ad-libs in, any chops, any end section vocals that you can fit with section C, any one-shot vocal chops you can fit in anywhere, any one-shot basses you can fit in, any small little rises you can add in at the end here, and then any instruments that you might have from the intro that you can somehow fit in, mostly to like the transition sections, so like section C, and then you start to fill in around all these basses and these drums to make an absolute banger. So that is everything for this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and make sure to subscribe. A new video every single week covering all aspects of electronic music production. And if you want that deal on the 2 packs, the dance floor pack and the rollers pack, then use that code in the description right now. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.